I read downstairs that sea turtles, the sex is determined by the temperature of the nest.
It is.
That's
it is.
so cool. That's just
Women are hot and men are cool.
Really? Okay.
That's the thing to try to remember.
We remember that. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the show. Today, I guess I'll just put it out there. We're recording on a Friday, which I guess it matters because Friday is a good day, right? But even more reason to be happy because we're actually recording at Sea Turtle Inc. And we're spending some time with Wendy Knight, CEO of Sea Turtle Inc. here at South Padre Island. So thanks for spending some time with us today.
We're glad you made it on the island. A Friday afternoon is not a bad time to cross the bridge onto South Padre Island. So, you know, April and early May on South Padre Island are the best times if you live in the valley to come over.
Really?
For sure.
Okay. Yep. Well, we learned something new. And of course, we're going to have to mention, we're also, I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. We're spending some time with Miss Mildred Ann also. She's in the shot. Forever who's watching on video. She's Miss Wendy's baby, right?
That's right. Mildred Ann is a rescue from our friends here at Friends of Animal Rescue on South Padre Island. So she was abandoned here on the island and had some medical needs. So she comes to work with me every day and cheers up the staff.
That's awesome. And her Mildred Ann, by the way, guys, she has a middle name.
Yes, she's very proper.
Yeah, I don't know if, maybe that's just us, but we had never met a dog with a middle name before. So I like that. And she's got her little bow going and everything.
That's right.
She's
a
very
proper
cute.
lady.
Yeah.
Proper lady.
Yeah, like, she has her little paws, like she has her little gloves on and everything. So, so we're here talking about the sea turtle rescue. This is actually something that we've been trying to get on for a while now. I know we were working with Miss San Juana, right? Is she the director of marketing?
She is director of marketing and development.
Yeah. So we've been trying to get this going for a while, just because, when we think about the valley, when we think about things to do, attractions, this is one of them, right? Sea Turtle Inc. But it goes deeper than that, because the first thing that we think about when we think about this place is not even so much an attraction. It's more of like a mission, right? Like a conservation effort. Right? It just so happens to be an attraction at the same time. And in your role as CEO, I'm sure that you obviously, like, you have your hand in directing what goes on and all that, and that's a big deal right now because there's a lot of growth.
We are, and I'm glad to hear you describe it that way because, I tell people often one of the things that I'm the most proud of being a resident at South Padre Island and being a resident here in the valley is that people understand the honor it is to live and work or play in a beach that shares space with the most critically endangered sea turtle in the world. So we are a nesting beach for the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. It is the most critically endangered. It is the only one that nests during the daytime. So it's one of the very few places anywhere in the world that at this time of year, so April, May, June, July, you could be sitting on the beach enjoying a mojito and a sea turtle will walk up to you at 2 p.m. and lay 150 babies in a nest right next to you. That just doesn't happen anywhere else.
And it happens here.
And it is an honor. It's more than, we're proud of our ability to educate a population worldwide. We're glad and proud to be the largest attended tourist attraction on South Padre Island for more than 10 years. But it's what happens outside of these walls that's really the privilege. And we're real proud of the fact that people from the Rio Grande Valley are aware of that and take it as kind of the honor that it is.
Yeah. And you know what? I guess thinking about it, let's take the position of someone who's never been here, right? A lot of people, the valley's growing, so a lot of us are new to the area, or like myself, some of us just had never been here before, right? So we can start from scratch. Tell us what Sea Turtle Inc. is, right? So like, what is this place all about?
Sure. So Sea Turtle Inc. is a nonprofit. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is focused exclusively on the conservation, medical care, applied research, and education of sea turtles. Sea turtles are part of the Endangered Species Act. They have been since the early 70s, one of the very first species enacted into the Endangered Species Acts. And all 7 of the species are either endangered, critically endangered, or near extinction.
Wow.
So this organization is 47 years old. And, I describe us now as the scrappiest big organization you'll find. We were started in the backyard of one woman who, with some of her friends, kind of saw a need and got tired of waiting around for somebody to do something about it. And, she was a maverick. She was one of the first 99 women to have a pilot's license. She was besties with Amelia Earhart. Some of the other doctors and volunteers involved were not afraid to kind of make some noise to get people focused on the need to protect sea turtles. And, 47 years later, we're in a beautiful education center right now. We have a huge residence center with more than 300,000 gallons of water, and 8 residents that live with us. We have an amphitheater where we host up to 500 people. And we're currently constructing the world's largest fully enclosed sea turtle hospital. But we are equally as scrappy as we were then. And we're real proud of that. So this is not for the faint of heart. So, right now we're sitting in the office, and, with Mildred Ann and talking about, conservation. But 2 hours ago, some of my best minds were knee deep in oil on the beach with a stuck UTV trying to excavate a nest, because 150 hatchlings needed to be relocated. So,
and that happens, right?
It's all of it.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes that's 2 a.m. and sometimes it's 2 p.m. But, we are an organization that takes the protection of the beach. We're responsible for 50 miles of it, from here all the way up to the port of Mansfield Cut, and all of Boca Chica Beach.
Wow.
And we take that seriously. And it's a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week gig. And bright minds from all over the world come here specifically just to work for Sea Turtle Inc. and just to do this work. So
yeah, because I was looking at one of the maps and it mentioned that Kemp's Ridley, there's only a few places they nest in the world, right? Like along this, there's the Gulf Coast, and then there's like South America. So, how many places in Texas do they nest?
You can find Kemp. I tell people this all the time. This is the general rule, but they go where they go. But I would say 95% of them are right here on the Gulf Coast. So us all the way up to Mansfield. It can get up to Corpus and even maybe Port Mansfield, that Port Aransas area. It could get that far, but it's really Corpus, down to us, and then through the Mexico border into Rancho Nuevo and some of the Mexico beaches in Mexico. But outside of that, that's it.
Wow.
So the occasional straggler will get confused and show up in Florida for unknown reasons, because animals, they are wild and they'll do what they want. But for the most part, the entire population is really isolated to this part of the world and this part of Texas beaches, which really makes, our conservation and protection of the beach, dune renourishment, and, ocean safety and those kind of things critical.
Man, that's crazy, because maybe for those of us who are not educated or don't know exactly what it entails, this is kind of just our local sea turtle rescue. We have one, right? But no, this is not just for the valley. In that case, this is something like a service to the world, right? Because you're talking about conservation. These turtles only go to certain places, right? This happens to be one of them, and it's not like there's one at every beach, right? This really, like you said, I'm sure bright minds come here, right, to work on these turtles. It's not any little rinky-dink operation, but that's crazy because it sounds like it started as one.
It did,
right? Literally somebody's backyard.
Literally in someone's backyard with about 10 of her friends, and once she started rescuing turtles and trying to treat them and help. That's when I think the real magic started to happen, where we started to realize that engagement could lead to positive consequences. Mm-hmm. So where she saw the ability to educate the future generation of conservationists, where they could see a sea turtle and understand how it got there, and then make the connection as to how they could in their lives make changes to avoid that consequence in another way. And that's really grown over 47 years. A key part and a pillar of our work is education.
Yeah.
And that comes in a lot of ways: in a fancy building, in an experience, a guest experience. We have 250,000 people a year come through this facility. So one of the big things that we teach when you're here is individual accountability. So there's a bunch of really heavy topics around conservation, right? We can talk about recycling and whether they're actually happening. We can talk about nurdles. We can talk about, climate change. And there's just this really heavy topic. And you could get bogged down into just being, paralyzed into making any real meaningful change. So what we talk about here is individual accountability. I don't care if you live in Miami, Florida, or you live in Des Moines, Iowa. There are things that you can incrementally do to have a meaningful impact on ocean health, ocean life, and sea turtles. I want you to walk out of here and promise that you're going to pick up 5 pieces of trash every day and put them where it belongs.
And it matters.
5 pieces. That's it. We have 250,000 people a year come through here. 5 pieces of trash, 365 days a year by 250,000 people is not nothing. And it's a simple task. I'm going to make the decision to eliminate plastic straws and single-use plastic. I'm going to carry my water bottle around. I'm going to have, a metal straw in my purse. I'm going to make that decision. That one decision made one time a day for 365 days a year by 250,000 people. And that's just the ones that walk in the store, not the 10 million reach on the internet. So it's about that individual accountability of how can you start individually owning what you can do to save this species. And that's really a big part of what we do. So right now, there's only 19 people paid to be here. There's 450 active volunteers that keep the whole place running.
Wow.
So this time of year, we have patrols out on the beach for 16 hours every day.
Every day.
Every day. So the first one goes out about 7 a.m. and the last one will come back about 9 p.m. tonight. We've already had 2 nests today, so half my people are out excavating nests today. We had 8 yesterday. So we have usually around 100 a year, usually around 10,000 hatchlings are protected just in the 3 or 4 months of nesting season every year. And that's in addition to thousands of cold stun turtles and hundreds of hospital patients. So it's a lot of opportunity to make a direct connection with the public, because when you walk in this door or you engage with us online, we're going to let you see. We're going to let you see that this is what's happening. We right now have, 17 patients in the hospital. And I'm going to tell you that 60% of our patients are here because of human intervention. We left our trash in the water and they ate it. We left our fishing line in the water and it got entangled. They got struck by a boat. They got struck by a jet ski. We can have a meaningful impact on this. And then, we have a completely separate research arm, which Dr. Banco runs, my chief conservation officer, because for the other 40%, we need to figure out what's happening. What diseases are impacting this? What is the food cycle chain happening? How can we meaningfully impact the health of this organization? So, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of responsibility. And, we got a lot of people that are real proud to do it.
Yeah. So I want to backtrack really quickly. I know you mentioned things that we can do, right? Like carry around a metal straw, right? A bottle of water, like a non-plastic one, a reusable one, right? Mm-hmm. What impact will that have? So like if I go to the store right now and I buy a jug for my water, I buy a metal straw, like what change am I making?
Absolutely. So, and this is exactly the connection we want to try to make people. We want people to try to have.
Connect the dots.
Absolutely. Yeah. Incremental, tiny things that in the big scheme of a lot of mental and emotional effort take almost none from you. But 60% of every patient that walks in this door is here because they were impacted by some kind of human element. So a large portion of those means they're impacted by things that aren't food. A large amount of that means. We all know what's happening to the condition and the health of our oceans, and trash and improper disposal of trash. So it doesn't matter where you live. If trash, non-biodegradable trash like plastic water bottles or plastic straws, end up thrown on the ground or somewhere other than where they're supposed to be, ultimately, one way or another, they're going to end up in the ocean.
So that's true. That's not just a saying.
No, they're going to get into your drainage system. They're going to go out to your septic system for your city. They're going to end up in your fields for the city, and they're ultimately going to get into the waterway. And you can meaningfully impact that. And it doesn't matter if you are lucky or blessed enough to live in a beachfront community or not. Mm-hmm. It actually can have a just as meaningful impact by not being in a beachfront community.
Wow.
So making sure that people actually understand that, and having little bright minds and eyes. We have 80,000 school-age children come through here on field trips a year. We want to make sure they understand how to take care of the world we're leaving behind. that there are things that they can do for the health and the well-being of this world and these animals that can meaningfully impact things. And, reaching children is a big part of our mission. It's a big part of that because that next generation of ocean steward is those kids.
That's true.
They're the ones that are going to take care of it. So we want to make a change in the adult folks, but we want to spark a lifestyle for the next generation.
And these Kemp Ridleys, those are the ones that we have mainly here, right? You mentioned that those are endangered also?
They are the most critically endangered. Kemp's Ridleys are the most critically endangered, and they're also the only one that nest during the daytime. So we have other nests. We have Atlantic greens that nest here on occasion. We have loggerheads that nest here on occasion. Those are, for the most part, to be really simplistic, sea turtles go where the food is. And Kemp's Ridleys come here because they were born here, and sea turtles tend to migrate back to the same geographic area. But most of the time they follow the food, but their navigation gets off on some. So we do get a few Kemp's Ridleys, a few Atlantic greens, a handful every year. We, on occasion, have a loggerhead. But for the most part, 90% of our work for nesting season is the Kemp's Ridley.
Wow. And I want to ask you something, just part of the conversation. In your role here as CEO, you oversee, the work, the hospital. And when you mention patients, you're talking about sea turtles. But I just want to make sure
that's
that
right.
we're
it's a
clear
hospital.
on that.
That's right.
Yeah,
it
literally is a hospital. What's one, because we can see your passion, right? We can see your passion in what you do. And like you said, night and day. There's no clocking out with this kind of work. What do you love about these turtles? Like, what drives your passion?
Do you know? I think my answer will surprise you. I didn't pick this organization because it's sea turtles.
Okay.
So my entire career before this was insurance and financial services. I was with a private equity fund for a long time, and I didn't know, outside of being a supporter of Sea Turtle Inc., meaning, you can't live on South Padre Island and not have people come and not bring them to Sea Turtle Inc. So I've been here many times, but it wasn't really about that, at least not sea turtles specifically.
Okay.
What really engaged me to come here is the people and the volunteers and the employees, the dedication and the emotional protective spirit of these people. It's moving. I would challenge that no one could live this life for more than a week and not feel significantly moved to take action. And that's really the way I felt about this organization. And now I am emotionally tied to sea turtles, and I think they're wonderful. But for the first 6 months I was here, I would frequently tell people, you could replace it with dolphins, monkeys. It was not about that. It was about the people that rally around this underdog story of an animal that without help could not help itself. And we talked earlier before we started recording about cold stuns. And that's a wonderful example of this animal without intervention would drown alive with no help.
And they were.
Hundreds of them. And it's really, my passion for this comes from a deep responsibility to clear the path for these people that are doing amazing conservation work. And that's what I see my role as. That's what I think my responsibility is here. I've hired the brightest minds around conservation. Dr. Bonk is one of 7 people in the world with the education she has around Kemp's Ridley sea turtles.
Wow.
We have under school age educators, we have directors of education, we have animal care specialists and rehab specialists that have that moved from England and Australia and all over the world simply to come here and work for Sea Turtle Inc. So
out of country,
absolutely.
How do you recruit them, or is it just the mission? They recruit themselves.
I told you I've run a lot of businesses in my life. This is the easiest staffing job I ever had.
Wow.
Positions don't stay open more than a half a second because the reputation's there, and there's not a lot of places doing what we're doing.
So you're telling me there's people like in France, Italy that know about Sea Turtle Inc.?
I have an employee right now that came here from England and another one that came from Australia.
So there's people all over the world that know about this place. So guys, if we're living in the valley, we've never been here. Like we got to do something about that because people are getting imported, right? Like basically.
It's funny you say that. I have an employee that is on vacation right now in Athens, Greece, and she texted me a picture in the middle of the night last night of our logo on a conservation building.
Oh my gosh.
In Athens, Greece.
In Athens, Greece.
And it is just an acknowledgement of the work that Sea Turtle Inc. does around the protection of sea turtles, and it's in Athens.
Wow, you see,
Greece.
And I think part of the thing about, like, as far as locals, right, as far as people that have been here long term, a lot of the times you think that whatever's around you isn't very significant because it's just because you just, I guess, you just know it, like, oh, that's Sea Turtle Inc. It's always been there. I can always go, so I just haven't been because it's always there. And like again, like we think that it's just like our local chapter, but this is a worldwide mission. And
absolutely.
And on our way over here, we didn't know that we were, but we were driving. We passed by a building. And you told us what that building is, and you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
You said it's going to be the world's largest hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
How does that happen? I mean, like from a backyard operation to what it is now. I mean, is that a product of just of the need of, like, I guess, like, of the I don't want to say the problem. I mean, it is, right? I mean, we gotta see it the way it is, and it's our problem at the end of the day. But tell us about that. So let's start here. When is that going to be open, and what's going to be involved in that new building?
So we started construction a little over a year ago on the largest fully enclosed sea turtle hospital anywhere in the world.
Wow.
It'll be right here on South Padre Island. We should be in and open for business before summer's over.
Okay. We got to take pride in that, guys.
As you can see in the picture, it looks like a building now. So, building on an island with only one way on and one way off can be a bit challenging. So it's taken a little longer than we planned. But true. This building has come, it's been iterative. It's been 15 years in the design making.
Wow.
But the real catalyst for this building was the cold stone, the big one. So more than 5,500 sea turtles in 8 days. So up until the day before that event happened, our plan was a redesign of the existing small hospital that I know everybody from the Valley has seen. It was an outdoor, almost like a pergola where you could see the animals in the hospital, but you were still outside and it was covered. And we were just going to shine and pretty that up. That event happened. And actually, San Juana and Dr. Amy and I were sitting on the convention center floor. And if you've seen any of the worldwide footage from that event, it was me, them, and 3,000 sea turtles lined up across 3 football fields of the convention center. And I had just gone live with BBC and done an update on what was happening. This was the single largest catastrophic event in recorded history. That event could have wiped out 47 years worth of our legacy if those turtles had not been rescued. And we were sitting there about 3 a.m. when don't even notice that you haven't slept or ate anymore. And I said, that hospital is not going to do it. It's just not going to do it. We're going to have one opportunity to do what needs to be done to have a worldwide impact. And that means we have to have a dedicated indoor research center where we can start solving these problems. It means that I need to be able to take mass transports from other hospitals when, like, the New England storm came through and they had 100 sea turtles they needed to get to a safe place. I need to be that safe place. Wow. If we're going to change the world, we need a facility that will withstand the storm. And that's what built this building. And it has been a Herculean effort. It quadrupled the budget of what we had planned to spend. But it is how we're going to change the world. And we're not going to settle for less. So that's what we're doing.
Wow, that could give someone chills just listening to that, and the idea that it's happening here. I know you mentioned off mic that Dr. Amy was that her name? That she had never even experienced that kind of event, like a cold stun. Like there was no context, there was nothing to compare it to. And then on top of that, guys, we have to remember where we are. Like we don't get cold in general.
We don't do cold here.
Yeah. So like, I mean, this was new even for the experts.
Yeah, it was BBC. It was world. We had live coverage. The funny story, I like to tell is at one point in my career, I had done some business with a business that was in Israel, okay. And about the 4th or the 5th night into that event, I got a message on my phone that said, "I don't know what's happening or what you're doing, but I think I just saw you on Israeli TV, and I think it has to do with sea turtles.
Oh my gosh. Oh, because they didn't know that you were working with sea turtles.
No.
This is like a past partnership.
Yep. So it's funny how these things happen, but sometimes no context is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amy, I had just brought her onto the organization maybe 60 days before that event happened. I had never even heard of a cold stun before. My experience was not in sea turtles. I did do catastrophe management for a long time.
Okay.
So I understood the concept of a catastrophe and mobilizing a process for a catastrophe. So we were just bopping along like things were fine. We didn't really realize that we might be doing something others had never done until like federal assistance and NOAA and volunteer, like this mass pouring of regulatory agencies came out to try to help us through. That's when Amy and I kind of looked at each other like, I wonder if we should be more nervous about what's happening than we are.
Like too many people are reaching out, right? Like, wow.
But what I like to remind people of in that is, there were thousands of volunteers. We had hundreds of vehicles that transported turtles back and forth all day. There was no way I could count the number of physical volunteers that drove from Austin, San Antonio. We had people show up from North Dakota. It was insane. But I want to remind you, for the locals that were here, we had no water, no electricity, and no restaurants, no food, no nothing. So we were working 24 hours a day, all day, every day, with nowhere to go. No food, no gas, no electricity, no heat. It was cold. It was.
That's a catastrophe.
Oh, it was. And it's one of those like adrenaline rushes that literally a year after, memories come back of things that we were like, why did we do that? But
in the moment,
you're like, the picture that I showed you earlier with, we had 3,000 or so sea turtles on this large ocean barge that we had to take 30 miles out into open ocean because they got ready to be released and it was still freezing here. And they had to go. They were ready. They were fine. We got them out of the weather. They were ready to go back and the water wasn't conducive. So thank goodness for, again, volunteers. We had a large oil spill recovery vessel that volunteered to come. And we were able to get 3,000 sea turtles on 4 levels of this enormous boat. And we had to go 30 miles out into open ocean. Well, that's 12 hours or so. I told you, I was relatively new to this game. And we were about 11 hours out when I went, how are we going to feed all these people that we put on here? Because once we get out there, you got to spend 4 hours or so letting the turtles off the boat, because then there's 3,000 turtles to put on the boat. So the big takeaway from the Great Cold Stun is food. Like, I am hyper aware of my people needing food now because we got all the way out into the ocean and luckily everybody was too tired to care that we didn't really have any food. And then we had to go for a second trip. So the whole thing ended up being about 36 hours.
Wow.
But I did have somebody waiting with food when we docked the second time.
And you were on that ship, on that boat?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So you were like on the front lines.
We did the work. It was, everybody does everything. So conceptually, we all have our role unless cold stuns happen. And then everybody.
All hands on deck.
Everybody treats cold stuns. Yep, for sure.
And you've had 2 since then, huh? Or one since then?
We have them every year. But the normal volume of cold stun is between 200 and 400 a year.
Okay.
We just had another big one, broke a little more than 1,000 this last December. But that is unfortunately becoming more the norm of the volume. And with the new hospital, if that event were to have happened and I had this hospital, we wouldn't have been going to the convention center. We would have enough room here to protect and do what we need to do without having to go off site. We're very lucky that we have a city that is excessively supportive and a convention center director that was willing to throw the doors open because outside of that, thousands would have been lost.
And so for that hospital, you said that like turtles are going to be coming from other areas, right? Kind of like the idea like of a level 1 trauma center, like where a patient gets transported to like a higher acuity. This is going to be that place where like when someone says we got to send this guy to like big dogs, this is the place.
That's us.
Wow,
that's right.
Wow. How does it feel to know that this is going to be that answer that everyone else needs?
It feels like a big responsibility. It does. It feels like a big responsibility, and we're ready for it. I think the perfect example is we are at Kemp's Ridley Beach. Every year in the wintertime, New England and that area has a huge cold stun. Well, I told you, sea turtles go where the food is. And that time of year, Kemp's Ridleys are eaten up north. So they have hundreds of Kemp's Ridleys that cold stun up there. There is no one better equipped to treat Kemp's Ridleys than us. We just need a place.
Yeah.
So we have transported patients down here on private jets. So there's an entire nonprofit organization that's focused solely on flying sea turtles. It's called Turtles Fly Too.
Turtles fly too.
So the very first time, despite all of my experience in my career, the first time I ever stepped foot on a private plane was to take Poppy off of it, the huge loggerhead turtle that lives with us in the residence center. She flew here on a private jet into Cameron County Airport from Florida. And I went to the airport and walked on a private jet, and there she was.
To pick her up.
Yep.
You were the entourage.
That's right.
Wow.
We all showed up. And she a big girl, so there was a lot of us.
Is she here? Is she here now?
She lives here with us. She'll live with us forever.
Okay.
She moved in when we had a long-term resident that lived in that tank, that Fred, that passed away.
Oh, okay.
And we adopted Poppy after Fred.
Your long-term residents, they live here if they have like certain conditions, right? Like they're just like not fit to be in the wild. You have several?
We do. We have 7 right now that
Residents?
are long-term residents. We'll have an 8th when the hospital is done because there's a space in the hospital for a resident.
Oh, nice.
So, I describe it as, they can't do what turtles do. And 9 times out of 10, that means they either can't dive to the bottom of the ocean to get food, or they can't dive all the way up to get air, or some semblance of both of those things. So if they can't do what turtles do, they are deemed non-releasable, and they live here with us. And they're that engagement opportunity. They're education ambassadors for us. So as you go out there, you can read about why they're here. And what the interaction was that caused them to be here. And then you can also read about what it peopleizes the experience, makes it something that's palatable. What's their favorite food? What do they do?
Okay.
How do they act in the tank?
Yeah.
They have their own Spotify playlists.
Do they really?
That are scanned thousands of times a month. That are playlists that our animal care and our education staff have put together that describe the personality of that resident. So that is really where I think that between that and the hospital, and where you can walk through and really see the patients and see what's wrong with them and why they're there, is absolutely where the rubber meets the road of people that come into this brick and mortar facility. Because they're able to look in there and see a 300-pound animal that can't help itself and that needs help. In order to survive. And it really makes those connections.
All right. So one thing that, because we were kind of doing our homework, and as a side note, I read downstairs that sea turtles, the sex is determined by the temperature of the nest.
It is.
That's so cool. That's just
women are hot and men are cool.
Really? Okay.
That's the thing to try to remember.
We remember that. Okay.
Women are hot and men are cool. So what's that tell you is happening to the population?
So that factors in when you think about the climate, right?
Absolutely. What's happening to the climate and the temperature, and how many, you can't make babies without a boy and a girl.
So women are hot then. Huh?
Women are hot.
Yeah.
Yep. So we got a lot of females. And while I'm all for girl power, you need the guys in there to make it happen. So that is a factor that's impacting
so that's another,
the population.
They can't catch a break then. Huh?
Right?
These turtles can't catch a break. So I was, did I see also that, and we were talking about it, one of the resident turtles had a prosthetic developed, and did I see that like that prosthesis that was developed here is being used all over the world now for any turtles that have that problem?
Yeah,
that was developed here.
Allison, yep. Allison was a long-term resident. She stranded here in 2004, and she actually died last year. She was here just short of 20 years with us.
Wow.
And Allison was attacked by what we believe was probably a shark. So 3 of her 4 flippers were gone. And this was back before really the same treatment of care options were available, because if that had happened now, she probably would have been euthanized in today's regulatory environment, but she wasn't. And they did a few surgeries and had enormous success, and then realized they had saved a turtle that couldn't do turtle things like swim. And so it became, an exercise of the brightest minds to figure out how to get her autonomous again. And the prosthetic actually started off they started with a surfboard attempt first to try to replicate a flipper. And that didn't work. It worked to some degree, but not to the degree it needed to. And then it developed into, what if we take a wetsuit and we create almost like a boat oar system. And 8 prosthetics later was the titanium prosthetic that she was wearing the year she died. So it basically acted like a rudder. And it clipped onto her the back of her shell, almost like a lid, and it had a rudder that came off that provided that balance that she was missing. And that helped her stay steady, and she was able to swim on her own and dive and eat. And she had a very, she was an ambassador for adaptation. We had a lot of special needs schools that came through to talk about perseverance and disability adaptation, and that we're no different, and that we can adapt. And that just because you look different doesn't mean that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because Allison was worldwide famous. And actually, the year she died, we had partnered with the UTRGV to take that design and to put it into a 3D element for that exact purpose, so that 20 years worth of our work and dedication could be easily used by someone else. So you can now take that design. It actually had a ratchet system that would grow. Turtles grow forever. So it had a ratchet design that would allow her to grow and expand without us having to fabricate a new one. And it would latch down onto her based on her size. And I described it to people like shoes. You wear shoes all day. You're supposed to wear shoes. And they don't hurt your feet all day, but you're like happy to take them off at the end of the day. That's kind of how I described Allison's prosthetic. At night, we put her in a shallow side tank that she didn't have to swim in, that covered her, but she didn't have to swim. And we took the prosthetic off. And she was never sad to put it on, and she was never sad to take it off. So I describe it a lot like shoes. Something you got to do, but you're happy to take them off at the end of the day.
Yeah. And now if that happens, if there's a turtle in that situation, like in Australia, they can look at Allison's prosthetic and go based off of her models.
Absolutely. Wow. So we had 20 years worth of plastic surgeons and dentists and mechanical engineers. And we had the expertise of people that we had involved in the 8 iterations of her prosthetic is not necessary for someone to start from nothing. So that they can start, and it will incrementally, I think that's her legacy in this type of work, is it will incrementally get better as technology gets better. Who would have envisioned 20 years ago that they would be able to print something that you could attach to an animal to help it swim?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's really using innovation, at the precipice of animal care, to start getting things done in a way that we would have never envisioned.
That's amazing. It's just amazing how some of these things go over our head. We take for granted, what we have here. So Amanda, I have one more question for you, because we talked about the conservation. What can we do? So because right now, we got the Valley listening. You're talking to us as a community. What can we do? Give us some homework. What can we do to support this mission?
Great. I appreciate you asking. I think, there's a lot of ways, and some of it involves you physically being here, and some of it doesn't, because, your life takes you where it takes you. So what the perfect scenario is that you're a member at Sea Turtle Inc., and that gets you free access to us all year. It directly goes to support the mission and helps offset the, on average, 130 days each patient spends with us in the hospital. And your money goes straight to work at the mission. We also obviously want you to engage with us electronically. So Facebook, social media, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere we are, that is our way to have worldwide impact on education. And the more people that follow us there and the more people that share content, the wider the reach is going to be to impact long-term behavior. But this is an organization that's fueled by volunteerism. So you don't have to have, $75 to be a member, to be a volunteer. And there's, over the last, really since the pandemic, we have started to really use volunteers at what they're good at. I told you about my background. Am I capable of writing a kids program for conservation? Sure. But should that maybe be where I lean into? Probably not. I have skills that you should probably lean into. We started doing that with volunteers. So you have an accounting background, you have a software background, you're a buyer with Dillard's. That's one of the first things we did when I got here is we did a survey, and I found we had a volunteer, a very active volunteer that was a buyer with a very large department store. I have a gift shop that 100% of its proceeds fuels our mission. We would not have the door open but for that gift shop. I should be using her to do that. So your skills are unique. If you have experience in grant writing, you have experience in accounting, you have experience in fundraising or event planning. There's more than we love our volunteers, and we have hundreds of them that come here on site and stand in that hospital and give people the talk I'm giving you to try to evoke them into action before they leave. They are critical, but there's a lot of stops to being involved as a volunteer with us between those two things. So what I would say is, you're right. We should be super proud to be here and to have the ability to change the world like we do. And there's lots of ways for you to have a meaningful impact on that.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you can start as simple as just clicking follow, subscribe,
Yep,
right? And then
absolutely.
and show up too, right? Come
Yep.
check it out. So this new hospital is going to be open by the end of the year for sure.
Oh, by the end of the summer.
We're going to be able to check it out. We're gonna
Absolutely.
be able to go in there and see what's going on. That's so cool. We're excited. We're excited to see how that looks. And you're designing the walls and everything, and
We're
making it all
excited.
look pretty.
It's gonna
up
be
and
great.
everything. Okay,
It's going to be awesome.
well, we're looking forward to that. Thanks for this time. I appreciate Mildred too, because she's been nice this whole time, and she's part of the conversation.
She's a great audience.
Yeah. So anyway, and I guess we're in the middle of nesting season, so that's a lot of work there too. So watch out, guys. When you're out at the island, I guess you might see like a nest, right?
Absolutely. Texas is an open beach. You are allowed to drive on Cameron County beaches. So, the message we send to people this time of year is responsible driving, 10 miles an hour or less, and pay attention. So it's a big responsibility to drive on the beach this time of year. So watch out for it, and obviously call us if you see anything.
All right, so we'll keep our eye out for that, and we'll keep our eye out for this new building opening up. So again, thanks for being here with us. We really appreciate what you do. Thanks for honestly for just the passion that you have for what you're doing, because it's making a difference. Obviously, at face value, we got a huge project going on outside. Yeah. So we have a lot to be proud of.
Thank you. We're glad y'all came.
Yeah. Have a good day. Okay.
You too.
See you later, Mildred.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mama.